250 billion francs CFA is the amount set aside by government to rehabilitate the national oil refinery company Sonara. Some economists have rubbished plans to pull through with the project at the time when resources are badly needed to tackle the coronavirus. We shall be hearing from an economist, Emmanuel Kunye, in this newscast. Also, we look into the resumption of the school year, a school year that has been badly interrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Tonight, we tell you what the academic year entails as far as the coverage of the syllabus and the fate of teachers not teaching public examination classes. Our reporter, Katrin Kone, is standing by. Those are top stories. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. You're watching the Primetime Newscast on STV. The leader of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, Maurice Kamto, says that elections will not hold in Cameroon unless the electoral code is reformed and the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions effectively resolved. The 2018 presidential candidate was speaking to his followers yesterday, where he addressed biting issues affecting the country. Details with Josephine Benzi.
Raising a handful of issues pertinent to national unity and security, former presidential candidate Maurice Kamto has addressed his followers, explaining various reforms as per the electoral code and solving the Anglophone crisis.
We have chosen not to be silent, especially what our population is faced with in the northwest and southwest region, the legitimate expectations of the population on the electoral code, and they are aware that if such a reform comes, it will ring a bell on the fraudulent elections that have troubled the history of our country.
Taking 10 steps backward, the mentioned national dialogue was convened in the Central region, discussing issues relevant to the Anglophone regions. Paul Tassong and Donatus Njong, as well as the DDR Center for De-Radicalizing Some Separatist Fighters, have been some of the moves approached by government to bring a tangible solution to the crisis. He, however, seeks a total resolution of issues before the next presidential elections.
I strongly reiterate and condemn all the flux of the Biya regime in the northwest and southwest, and true change can only come about with the amelioration of the electoral code in collaboration with the organizations of the civil society. The Cameroon Renaissance Movement will not accept another election in Cameroon without solving the major issues.
The president of the MRC party reached out to the population some weeks ago to fight the global pandemic by distributing some sanitary kits in the nation's capital.
Just as we told you in the headlines, 250 billion francs CFA has been set aside for the rehabilitation of the national oil refinery company Sonara. The move comes 1 year after findings on the fire incident which engulfed the company was given to government. But an economist says that the move is coming at a wrong time when resources are badly needed for the rehabilitation, for government to tackle the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Our reporter John Paul Sama spoke with Emmanuel Kunye and our report.
250 billion francs CFA is the amount put forth by the government of Cameroon for the rehabilitation works at the Cameroon oil refinery Sonara. An amount which economists say is not enough compared to plans they had for its extension a few years ago. I think it's not enough to bring back Sonara to its former glories with that amount. But when you look at the institution, you would see that it's drowned in debt. And we are asking how these 250 billion francs CFA will solve the issue, given that before this incident, the state had planned to carry out extension works of about 500 billion francs CFA, with the first phase carried out in 2010, costing half of that.
remettre la Sonara, n'est-ce pas, dans son état de fonctionnement.
The announcement coming at a time when the country is battling against the dreaded coronavirus seems not to be a stitch in time.
Ça sera très difficile parce que, compte tenu, n'est-ce pas, de l'avènement du coronavirus, on est aujourd'hui.
It's going to be difficult because, taking into account the fight against the COVID-19, we think the priority now is to orientate resources towards the functioning of certain state structures and also investment in the health domain, where we have a lot of problems getting the necessary equipment in this fight. To come up with a spending of 250 billion francs CFA today for Sonora is not well thought out at the moment, but will be great if it's done sometime in the future.
Mal pensé et que on pourrait le faire, mais il serait souhaitable qu'on attende.
The Minister of Water and Energy has also precised that the works are expected to start when the necessary finances will be made available, as negotiations are ongoing with certain structures for the mobilization of resources. It's been well over a year since the drastic fire outbreak occurred at Sonara on May 31st, 2019.
The United Nations Development Programme has handed a consignment of anti-COVID-19 kits as well as didactic materials to the government of Cameroon. It is geared towards facilitating the start or the restart of the school year. As Josephine Binzi tells us more, these items worth 780 billion francs CFA are destined for 8 regions in the country. Her report.
The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, delivered tons of hygiene and preventive materials to Cameroon to help the Central African country fight the COVID-19 pandemic in schools, worth 780 million CFA francs. This donation goes to more than 8,000 schools in 6 regions. It composes principally buckets equipped with taps for the storage and other sanitary materials. We want to facilitate the back-to-school campaign. Jacques Boyer, UNICEF resident representative in Cameroon, told reporters while handing over the donation in Cameroon's capital, Yaoundé. The gifts were received by the Minister of Secondary Education, Pauline Nalova-Lyonga, who expressed immense gratitude towards UNICEF while boosting the morale of parents to send their children to school.
So we're very happy. You can trust, and here I'm talking to the parents, you can trust the school authorities that they will handle your child the way you would handle the children.
The country, as at now, has over 5,000 COVID-19 cases and still remains on an alert.
The University of Buea in the southwest region of the country is up and running to complete the academic year after classes effectively took off today in the southwest regional capital. Students were subjected to temperature checks and regular washing of hands. Social distancing was also respected in amphitheaters across the school campus. The Vice-Chancellor of the institution, Gomo Horace Manga, has called for calm and says that all has been put in place to ensure a hitch-free conclusion of the school year. Let's now listen to 2 students who now tell us about their challenges in the midst of COVID-19.
Today because it's actually my final semester, so I didn't intend missing it out, so I'm really excited to be here. Very uncomfortable sitting in class for 2 hours with a face mask on. It's really difficult, but we don't really have a choice. We have to prevent the virus from spreading, so we don't have a choice.
Because we feel so excited coming back on campus. It hasn't been easy after this long lockdown and this shutdown of schools. It's been so difficult, especially for us final years, especially when it comes to project writing. You sending, not all of our supervisors are Android based, so sending has been so slow. You can't even communicate with your supervisor often, but we are so happy that at least the band have been uplifted, and I feel so excited being back to school. And I'm just from seeing my supervisor, at least it makes me to know that I'm a student, and I got reading come December to getting out of here, so I'm really excited.
Pupils and students in Jan Division, still in the southwest region of the country, have also answered the back-to-school call. The senior divisional officer for Jan Division, accompanied by education officials, visited primary and secondary schools in the divisional headquarters, Mundemba. At the end of his tour, he caught up with reporters and shared his general observations. Let's now hear from Harrison Kwetong. He is the senior divisional officer for Jan Division.
I want to say that I had earlier, before the day of today, handed over to the Divisional Delegate of Basic Education 1,100 protective face masks, to the Divisional Delegate of Secondary Education 1,000 face masks, and today as I was moving, I was sending some other face masks to almost all the schools that we visited. I think all in all, it has been a huge success in Mundemba today, the 1st of June 2020, for the reopening of classes. When I talk of classes, I mean examination classes. And I want to thank all the head teachers, all the principals who are now presently in their posts. There is no principal who is absent, and there is no head teacher who is absent. Just like all the divisional delegates of the sector concerned are there. And I also want to use this occasion to thank all the stakeholders, because if not of the stakeholders, the environment that we are seeing very, very clean would not have been so. I think Indian ahead.
In the northwest region, also hit by the separatist conflict, education officials are also on the front lines to ensure the unconditional respect of measures put in place by government to avoid the COVID-19 pandemic in schools. The regional delegate of secondary education, for the northwest region, has taught some schools in Bamenda, where he evaluated the conduct of the school resumption. Let's listen to him.
Podcasts, and the schools have started giving out podcasts. The podcasts are all available, and they've come up with a program to enable parents to come up progressively and collect the podcasts with their children. So I wish to say that the campuses are ready. They've all been disinfected, and it's just for us to receive the kits come Monday next week.
What expectations do you have of the students and parents?
Good. I expect that the students should come on Monday ready for business, for serious business. You know, while we were waiting for this day to come up, we were already having distance learning activities with CRTV and other local radio stations intended to keep the students busy. And we're expecting that they should come on Monday ready to have remedial classes and catch-up classes for perhaps work that might not have been covered, so that we should be ready to start the official exams and end of course exams a month after that. We also expect that when the students are coming, they should come ready with their pedagogic materials. They come ready with their exercise books, their textbooks. And as far as COVID-19 is concerned, we expect that the students should come along with their face masks. We've been encouraging parents to buy face masks for their children. We expect that each child should have at least one face mask for each of the days, the school days. That's from Monday to Friday. That's about 5 if they could afford. But for students and parents who might not be able to afford this amount of face masks, we have given to all the schools a consignment of face masks, which are offered by the head of state, so that students who cannot afford, they must have. So there's no reason for any student to be on campus, any teacher to be on campus who doesn't have a face mask on.
The resumption of classes for the 2019-2020 school year concerns principally examination classes, a situation which puts teachers in these classes on the edge, as they are expected to properly groom the students and pupils for official examinations. But while we expect teachers not teaching examination classes to be on holidays, they, however, have a major role to play in the success of the academic year. Catherine Kone has been investigating on the role of teachers not teaching examination classes in the success of the school year, and now reports.
The last part of the academic year concerns students, pupils, and teachers of examination classes. Many are therefore eager to know what becomes of teachers who are not involved in these classes. Posing the question to a school official in Douala, she explains that
bon, les enseignants, même certains enseignants, comme par exemple les professeurs DPS, parce qu'il n'y aura plus les cours.
Some teachers of non-examination classes are supposed to be around in order for us to have maximum persons so as to sensitize the students, even during lectures. We are thinking that during the break time or before lectures commences, if any student is caught going against the preventive measure, the teachers will call them to order. Owing to the fact that the number of students per class will be reduced, the other teachers will be programmed on something else. They are organized in such a way that during the week, everyone is occupied. No one stays at home as at now. It should be noted that the measures put in place pertaining to the rotation of teachers are temporary.
The syllabus was also cut short due to the COVID-19, a situation which teachers are forced to redress with the resumption of the 2019-2020 school year across the country. But how will teachers tackle the syllabus and prepare students and pupils of public examination classes for the test ahead? Katrin Kone has more.
The last phase of the academic year 2019-2020 kick-started across the nation Monday after almost 3 months of no schools. Examination classes that resumed are expected to begin with intensive revision.
L'école a repris et les dispositions ont été prises pour que tout se passe bien.
Schools have resumed and all measures have been taken against the coronavirus. We have 1 month of classes as stipulated by the government. And to ensure that everything goes on well, we have decided to start with revision to refresh the memories of the students and also look at what we did not do in the second term, owing to the fact that schools were abruptly stopped. Over 90% of the school program had been covered.
Et ça fait que la moitié, la plupart des programmes, les programmes ont été couverts presque à 85-90%.
Owing to the fact that studies were done online and some on television, not every student was able to follow them. To ensure that everybody is on the same page, certain measures have been put in place by these teachers.
Et dès qu'on revient là, ce sera pour remettre les pendules à l'heure.
Now that we have resumed, our objective is to drill students through our intensive classes. It is true that during the period of no classes, students were taught through WhatsApp. The teachers made an effort to teach students in examination classes online. But now the problem is not everyone was involved in the e-learning. So this resumption, for those who were unable to follow the online lectures, we will now refresh their memories ahead of the exams.
Vont les avoir maintenant en direct. Donc on va rafraîchir la mémoire des élèves, on va les préparer pour les examens officiels.
Examination classes, according to the government, are expected to begin their exams in July 2020 to end the academic year.
Cameroon now has more than 6,000 cases of the coronavirus, with the economic capital Douala registering the highest number of cases. But the inhabitants of the economic capital are exercising alarming indifference and sometimes complacency in the face of measures put in place against the pandemic. Our reporter Christella Sek has been investigating the motive behind such laxity, and our reports.
Cameroon is almost at 6,000 cases of the COVID-19 infection, but the fear of contracting the virus is losing its steam. Sports like bars, restaurants and other recreational facilities have put in place all hygienic and sanitary dispositions, yet their clients don't bother to hold and practice these basic rules. Like this young mechanic, he gives us reasons why he doesn't wear his face mask often.
When I'm at my job site, I take off the face mask because sometimes quand ça chauffe trop là, parfois il fait pas enlever. Surtout quand il fait chaud là, on travaille dans le soleil, on enlève un peu, on garde derrière.
Going around town, it is noticeably that so many people still go about their activities without your face mask on, or either respecting the 1.5 meters social distancing rules. In the midst of the global coronavirus pandemic, Cameroon has emerged with one of the highest numbers of confirmed cases in sub-Saharan Africa.
We now take you out of the country where, in the midst of violent protests in the United States, President Donald Trump has addressed the country where he declared himself president of law and order, threatening to deploy the military to some cities. He has also lashed out at some governors and mayors for not taking measures to protect the properties and lives of American citizens. More with the VOA.
As demonstrators protested peacefully near the White House Monday evening, a surprise announcement from President Donald Trump. He declared that acts of domestic terror have been committed by violent demonstrators and vowed to end what he called riots and lawlessness that have spread across the country.
Today, I have strongly recommended to every governor to deploy the National Guard in sufficient numbers that we dominate the streets. Mayors and governors must establish an overwhelming law enforcement presence until the violence has been quelled. If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them.
As Trump spoke, the sound of tear gas being fired echoed from a nearby park where security forces were clearing the protests. Despite his threat, Trump did not invoke the Insurrection Act, which the White House press secretary has said he is considering. The 1807 law gives the president authority to deploy active duty troops to states without a request from the governor. The president had been under pressure to address the nation after days of demonstrations around the country, mostly peaceful but some marred with looting and violence, sparked by the death of George Floyd.
What was his name? George Floyd!
The black man died May 25th after a white police officer held his knee on the man's neck for more than 8 minutes. In his remarks, Trump said that justice for Floyd will be served, but he did not address the racial inequality and police violence that the protesters have been decrying. Trump has been accused of stoking racial divisions by his critics, including the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden, who on Monday met with African-American religious leaders in his home state of Delaware.
Hate just hides. Doesn't go away. And when you have somebody in power who breathes oxygen to the hate under the rocks, it comes out through the rocks. It matters what the president said.
After his remarks, Trump walked to St. John's Episcopal Church about a block north of the White House, where just minutes earlier protesters had been cleared away with tear gas. The historic church suffered minor damage the previous evening when a small fire was set in its basement.
We have a great country.
Trump did not go into the church but stood outside holding up a Bible. Presidential rhetoric scholar Jennifer Mercicha said Trump appeared to be trying to convey a message of strength to his supporters.
It's no accident that the television cameras caught him walking past the graffiti. I think that it was really important for him to have that shot of him holding up the Bible. And I think that that was really a part of what he wanted to convey as the image of this moment, which is a president of the United States who's standing in front of a boarded up church, sort of defiant against protesters.
Thank you very much, everybody.
After Trump's visit, the Episcopal Bishop of Washington, the Right Reverend Marian Budde, said she is outraged by the president's visit and the manner in which the area was secured for his appearance. Budde accused the president of inciting violence and using one of the most sacred symbols of the Judeo-Christian tradition. Patsy Wida Kuswara, VOA News, Washington.
Sports football. The Confederation of African Football (CAF) has come up with tentative dates for the resumption of continental competitions put on hold by COVID-19. Cameroon has also been ordered to give a report on the state of facilities earmarked for the 2021 African Cup of Nations. John Paul Sama completes the story.
The Japoma Stadium in Douala could host the final of the CAF Champions League in either August or September. This comes following propositions arrived at by the Confederation of African Football after consultations with her member associations. The various scenarios could see the return of the continental competitions by the end of July or early September, that is the semi-finals first leg played between the 31st and August 1st or 2nd, meanwhile the second leg programmed for the 7th, 8th and 9th of October, with the finals played on the 23rd of August for the CAF Confederations Cup, while the CAF Champions League will be held on August the 28th in Douala. The second possible scenario proposed could see a return of these competitions by early September, while the finals will be played on the 23rd and 25th of September for the CAF Confederations Cup and the CAF Champions League respectively. All these measures are being pondered upon so as to find a solution to end the current season, which has been put on hold as a result of the coronavirus, and also to plan for the 2020-2021 football season.
And that does it for the primetime newscast on STV. Thank you very much for watching. Leila Ganzo will be coming up at 8 p.m. with news in the French language. From the entire news and production team in Douala, have a good night.